Ever wondered why there are predominantly only two presidential candidates in the U.S.? This question takes us back to the early days of American politics, where the seeds of our two-party system were sown. In the beginning, there was a divide in political ideologies between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists, led by figures like Alexander Hamilton, favored a strong central government and a loose interpretation of the Constitution. On the other side, the Anti-Federalists, championed by individuals like Thomas Jefferson, believed in states' rights and a strict interpretation of the Constitution. These early political disagreements laid the groundwork for the two-party system we know today. As the nation grew, so did the political landscape, and these two groups eventually evolved into the Democratic and Republican parties. The Democratic Party, tracing its roots back to Jefferson's anti-federalist ideals, has traditionally championed progressive policies, workers' rights, and social equality. The Republican Party, on the other hand, originated from the anti-slavery movement and has historically stood for free market capitalism, fiscal conservatism, and a limited role of government in citizens' lives. Over time, these two parties became the dominant forces in American politics. Despite the existence of other political parties, the Democrats and Republicans have had a near monopoly on political power. This is largely due to the winner-takes-all nature of our electoral system, which we'll delve into in the next scene. This two-party domination is not an accident, but a result of the U.S. political structure. The system was designed in a way that fosters a binary choice, making it tough for third parties to gain traction. This has led to a political tug-of-war between the two major parties, each vying for control of the government. So the next time you're pondering why there are predominantly only two presidential candidates in the U.S., remember that it's not just tradition, it's a consequence of our political history and structure. But that's not the end of the story. There are other factors at play, and as we move through this video, we'll uncover more layers of this complex issue. Stay tuned. The U.S. Electoral College system plays a significant role in this two-party dominance. Now, let's unravel this a bit. The Electoral College system is quite unique. It's not about who gets the most votes nationwide. Instead, it's about who wins in each of the 50 states. Each state, depending on its size, has a certain number of electoral votes. The candidate who secures the most votes in a state takes all its electoral votes. Hence the term winner takes all. This system, in essence, discourages votes for third-party candidates. Why so? Because in closely contested states, these candidates could potentially tip the scales, acting as spoilers. Instead of helping their cause, they could inadvertently aid the candidate they least align with by splitting the vote. The Electoral College system, therefore, makes it challenging for third parties to gain any significant traction. State-level laws and regulations also create hurdles for third-party candidates. Every state in the United States has its own unique set of laws and regulations pertaining to ballot access. This means that the requirements for a candidate's name to appear on the ballot can vary greatly from one state to another. Some states might require a certain number of signatures on a petition, while others might require payment of a filing fee, or even both. These requirements can pose significant challenges for third-party or independent candidates. For one, gathering the necessary signatures can be a time-consuming and expensive process. On top of that, some states' filing fees can run into the thousands of dollars. This makes it particularly difficult for candidates who don't have the backing of a major party to get their names on the ballot. These laws and regulations often make it prohibitively expensive and logistically difficult for third-party candidates to compete. Americans are socialized into a two-party system from an early age. This socialization is a fascinating process, deeply embedded in our culture and the way we perceive politics. The narrative is simple, yet powerful. It's Democrats versus Republicans, liberals versus conservatives, blue versus red. This dichotomy is reinforced in many ways, often subtly and unconsciously. Consider how our political discourse is framed. We talk about issues in terms of left and right, liberal and conservative. This binary lens often leaves little room for alternative viewpoints or third-party perspectives. Similarly, our media plays a significant role in perpetuating this narrative. News coverage, political commentaries, and even late-night talk shows, they all largely revolve around the two major parties. And let's not forget our education system. From school books to classroom discussions, we are taught about the Democrats and Republicans, their ideologies, their historical significance, and their present-day relevance. As a result, most Americans grow up seeing politics as a binary choice. The exclusion from debates and the role of money in politics further reinforce the two-party system. When it comes to the presidential debates, the criteria for participation are set by the Commission on Presidential Debates. This commission, interestingly enough, is co-chaired by the former heads of the Democratic and Republican parties. The rules stipulate that a candidate must have a certain level of national support, typically around 15% in 5 national polls, to be included in the debates. Now, achieving this level of support is a Herculean task for third-party candidates, considering that they must compete with the major parties for media attention and public recognition. This often leads to a catch-22 situation, where third-party candidates are excluded from debates because they lack sufficient national support, yet they struggle to gain this support because they are excluded from the debates. And then there's the issue of campaign finance. Money is a powerful force in American politics, and the two major parties have a significant advantage when it comes to fundraising. They have established networks of donors, access to party funds, and the ability to attract large contributions from corporations and special interest groups. Third-party candidates, on the other hand, often lack these resources and must rely on smaller donations from individual supporters. Furthermore, the major parties benefit from greater media coverage, which is crucial for reaching voters and promoting their platforms. Media outlets tend to focus their coverage on the major party candidates, leaving third-party candidates struggling for visibility. The financial disparity between the major parties and third-party candidates affects not only their visibility, but also their viability. Campaign funds are used for everything from hiring staff, running advertisements, to organizing events. Without adequate funding, third-party candidates face an uphill battle in getting their message out and competing effectively with the major parties. In essence, the exclusion from debates and the financial disparities in campaign finance are significant obstacles for third-party candidates. They limit the ability of these candidates to gain recognition, reach voters, and compete on an even playing field. These factors create a significant disadvantage for third-party candidates and contribute to the dominance of the two major parties. Voters themselves often contribute to the two-party system through strategic voting. This is a practice wherein, rather than casting their ballot for their most preferred candidate, voters choose a candidate they perceive as the lesser of two evils. Now, why would they do that, you ask? Well, it's a tactical move. In a system where winning requires the most votes, it makes sense to vote for a candidate who has a realistic chance of winning, even if they're not your first choice. Here's a common scenario. A voter's favorite candidate might be from a third party, but they know that this candidate has slim chances of winning. So they vote for their second choice from one of the major parties, simply to prevent their least favorite candidate from securing victory. This voting behavior perpetuates the two-party system, as voters are reluctant to waste their votes on third-party candidates. There are, however, proposals to change this system. One such reform gaining traction is ranked choice voting. This approach allows voters to rank candidates by preference, rather than casting a single vote for one candidate. If no candidate receives a majority of first-choice votes, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Voters who preferred the eliminated candidate then have their votes reallocated according to their second choices. This process continues until a candidate receives a majority. By allowing voters to express a range of preferences, ranked choice voting could give third-party candidates a more viable chance. In fact, it's already being used in some elections within the United States, like in Maine for congressional and presidential elections, but the push for reform doesn't stop at the borders of the United States. It's worth taking a moment to look beyond to see how other democracies operate. Many countries have multi-party systems encouraged by their electoral systems. For instance, some nations use proportional representation, where the percentage of seats a party has in the legislature reflects the percentage of votes it received. This system allows for a broader spectrum of parties and candidates, providing voters with a wider array of choices and fostering a political environment where cooperation and coalition building are paramount. Countries like Germany, Sweden, and Israel are examples of nations that embrace this approach. Their governments often consist of multiple parties, each representing a different slice of the electorate. This can lead to a more nuanced and comprehensive representation of the people's will, though it can also lead to challenges in forming stable governments. Of course, each system has its strengths and weaknesses, and what works in one country may not work in another. The U.S. political system has been shaped by its own unique set of historical, cultural, and institutional factors. Any changes to this system must take these factors into account. While change may be slow, these efforts show that the two-party system in the U.S. is not set in stone, and a more diverse political landscape could be on the horizon. That's it for now. Please subscribe for more. Leave a like and share it with potential presidential candidates. Until next, my friend.